Hello, this is Craig Camp, and welcome to Troon Talk, where we dig deeply into biodynamic and regenerative organic certified winemaking and farming at Troon Vineyard in Oregon's Applegate Valley. And now for today's guest. Welcome to this episode of Troon Talk. Over half of our property is devoted to vineyard, but the other half is devoted to other farm products. It's a very biodiverse property, and of course we always talk about wine and food as being the ideal match, which we believe it is. So we do both. So we've talked about wine a lot, so today we're going to be talking about our food. So with us today is Jennifer Teisl, our vinegar maker, food processor, gardener, farmer extraordinaire. Welcome, Jennifer.
Hi.
So what led you down the farm path?
Well, it all started really because I wanted to serve healthy food to all of my children. So that started my journey of going to farmers markets in the Hudson Valley of New York and looking for the best organic produce. And then I realized that I wanted to grow the produce myself. So I had a farm in the Hudson Valley and started experimenting with growing and ended up growing specialty tomatoes and peppers for restaurants in New York City. And then that's really when I started learning more about biodynamics. And so my journey to learn more and to practice biodynamics has been going on for the last 12 years.
So your partner in a lot of this process is our other guest today, Chef Carl Krause. Welcome.
Hey, thanks for having me.
So Carl's essentially our chef in residence. He's involved in all aspects of our farm and produce, events, dinners, lunches, and we're going to talk about all these things today. So Carl, tell us your food journey.
Yeah, so food journey. Started a long time ago. I often get asked what got me into cooking, and it's because my mom was not the best cook, and one day she got tired of me complaining, told me to do it myself, and now we're here basically. So it was fun. Went to culinary school, got jobs in restaurants in high school, was able to attend like a tech school program for half the day for my junior and senior year, where we'd get bussed up and put on the chef coats and do knife cuts and everything like that, which was really awesome.
High school?
Yeah, junior, senior year, yeah. We competed in a few like state level competitions through ProStart, which is a nationwide culinary program that does awesome stuff with younger, or I guess what you would say the next generation of people coming into the industry. After high school, went to the Hudson Valley as well, which is kind of funny, in Hyde Park, New York, the Culinary Institute of America, and did the bachelor's program there, got really, a ton of knowledge and a ton of connections, and it was just a really awesome experience. After that, moved to Boston with my now wife, and this is where Marvin comes in. That's the name of our sourdough starter, if you're not familiar. He's 13 going on 14 right now. Traveled from Boston to Portland, down Southern Oregon, so he's been a fun addition. Yeah,
Marvin's essentially one of the team here at Troon. He's on everything we do.
Yeah, we talk about him by name, and everybody who eats here knows who he is, which is pretty fun. After worked in Boston, worked for Barbara Lynch, who has she's pretty well known specific East Coast chef, but specifically in Boston. Worked at her sort of highest end establishment, Monton, which was Relais and Chateau, 5 Diamond AAA. We offered a few types of menus, all of them coursed out between 4, and I think we went up to like 10 to 12 courses for the full tasting. Did that for about 2 years and came out to Portland, and took me a little bit to the culture shock of East to West Coast was a little different. Restaurants out here are a little bit different. So it took me a while to kind of find a spot that I wanted to work, but took a job at a Japanese restaurant up in Portland, which was super cool. Learned a bunch of stuff that I didn't have any experience with, and a lot of the fermentation and pickling techniques that we'll see come through these value-added products come from experiences there, which is awesome. And then down here, we moved down here in 2019, dealt with COVID, however that works in the restaurant. I ended up cooking in the hospital, which was a means to an end at a certain point, but a different avenue of things that I hadn't seen before. But in 2021, we were able to open up the food truck, and so we've just been lucky enough to make good friends, especially here in the wine industry, and especially with you guys having the garden and everything. So really excited to have a place like this around and be able to work with you guys. You guys are doing awesome stuff.
So your experience at the Culinary Institute of America, the very famous CIA, long list of famous chefs have passed through those doors. What was that experience like?
It was cool, especially at what they don't tell you in culinary school is there's like a 70% dropout rate, because you're basically signing up for a job when you go. Like, you have class. It's not like, I'm going to call it real college. Like, you can't just show up for the final and ace it and get a C in the class. If you have 8-hour classes every day, you're basically either the morning shift or the night shift. So you can start at 6 in the morning or around 11 or noon. And you miss like 2 days, you fail the class. And you can tell you can very quickly see the people who are serious or knew what they were getting into versus the people who, I assume, just watched Food Network and thought it would be fun.
But sounds like good training for a restaurant job.
Yeah, it's and I always hear about college kids coming back for Thanksgiving where they get a month off and things like that. We had like 4 days, I think, for Thanksgiving. Around Christmas time, we got like 2 weeks. So we basically the school was shut down for 6 weeks a year, 3 in the winter around Christmas, and then 3 in the summer. Other than that, it ran all the time because that's the industry. And so it was, a challenge for some, but really good for a lot of us. Went through the program where, you learn your knife cuts, your basic techniques. Then you kind of dive into these different cuisines where you're actually cooking for other students. So if you're the morning, you end up cooking lunch for people, and they come in, and just like a restaurant, you have, 5 or 6 dishes. And they put in an order, and whatever dish your team is on, you put it up, and the chef checks it out, and then you serve it to your fellow students, which is a really cool way to, one, hold you accountable, because, you're cooking for your friends. And as college kids, everybody doesn't mind calling you out on stuff if your knife cuts aren't right or your garnish is ugly. But it was fun. And then after that, in the bachelor's program, took wines class, so we were able to do a crash course in wines, 3 weeks of wines, did the New World in 1 week, France in 1 week, Italy in 1 week, and professor starts off the class by basically saying, if you don't get a 70 on the first test, like, drop out because you're not going to pass, and take it over, save yourself the money, take it. So that was a really cool, really intense class, but that's what really got me interested in the food and wine pairing, because we did a tasting, and my first like aha magical experience was Pedro Jimenez sherry and vanilla ice cream, which
salty sweet.
Yeah, I just like, whoa, I get it now. Which was pretty cool. And after that is the closest thing in my mind to magic that we can experience.
So who and what kind of cuisines and what chefs have been inspirational for you?
It's a great question. We'll go with chefs first because they're easy. Francis Malman's been one. He's super famous for his open fire cooking, pretty rustic, a lot of great cookbooks out there. But everything he does is open flame and pretty much just vegetables or meat and just cooked over fire. Like, it's very simple as far as like intricacy, but it's all about the good product and how it's treated and things like that, which is really interesting. Another one that was really inspirational to me was Favakin, which was I think it recently closed, but out in Sweden, really small. Everything they served was foraged or grown in the garden. Fish was caught by like hook and line. And I really like them because they did things backwards. There's a great episode about this restaurant on The Chef's Table. And normally, in a restaurant like this, the chef stands at the pass and watches the dishes go out and checks it and everything. And then, the newest person is in the back struggling to do whatever they're supposed to do. And so he flipped it. He has the new people standing at the pass just checking everything so they can see it, and then he's in the back cooking or being hands-on with the sous chefs that are actually cooking. And he did some really cool stuff that I had never thought of. Like, one of his dishes was retired dairy cow. So it's something that already served its purpose, but still has a lot to offer. We just don't really see it like that. Because these animals have been around longer, they've developed more flavor. They do require a little bit different techniques of cooking just because of the age of the animal and the muscle fiber structure and stuff. But there's a lot to be said about that, and there's, I think, a lot of waste just in general with these sorts of things. And so I was really impressed with like, oh, that's super cool. Yeah, what happens to the cow after it's not making milk anymore? Like, where does that go? Something I never thought of. Cuisines are a little bit harder just because there's definitely an Asian influence in my cooking, but I think it's not Asian flavors, it's mentality of like the Japanese thought of simplicity, where it's like a dashi broth, which is seaweed and dried fish flakes. Not a whole lot there, but it's very subtle, it's very comforting. And then also I like Southeast Asia, Thai food, Vietnamese food, all those sort of like bold flavors and taste, right? Like, that's one of the few cuisines that you can see most dishes hit the sweet, sour, bitter, umami all at once. And there's great temperature things like cold noodles or cold fish on hot rice, things like that, and pickles and texture. There's just a whole lot going on there. So I think there's a lot of Asian influence, but then also, like, I love the use of butter, which is very French. So there's that sort of combination of the Asian mentality, but taking these comfort foods, I guess, that we've grown to love. Like, everybody loves cheese and butter and cream and stuff, and kind of mixing those two together, if that makes sense.
Yes, I've had the pleasure of enjoying your food many times now. And
thank you.
I have to say that I don't look at that and say, oh, this is a French influenced chef, or this is an Asian. There's this melange of influences and styles and your own creativity. How do you describe your approach to cooking?
Oh, that's a good one. Really, my approach starts with what ingredients are around and in season, because I would much rather cook a high quality sunchoke than order in filet mignon from who knows where. I think there's a lot to be said about just the quality of things like that. So I start there. I usually pull some inspiration from some type of either street food or comfort food or something familiar for people, and then throw weird flavors at it. Like, what did we do? The combination, like the chocolate and blue cheese, right? Can't take credit for that combination, but that's our good friends at the now closed Lily Bell and Broke Creamery. But that ends up playing a lot into mostly our desserts, especially with chocolate. Like this Sunday we did a chocolate cremeux with I called it a red wine butterscotch, which is red wine vinegar that we cooked down with sugar, and then instead of the butter to sort of thicken the sauce, we used the blue cheese. So you get this really like sweet and sour, and you get like the fat from the cheese, but also like the funk of the blue cheese, and it's just a really interesting, like, it's thinking food is what I like to say. It makes you go, oh, what is going on here? It's just different.
So obviously you're taking your inspiration from what's available and inspires you that day. Jennifer, as a farmer, what is your experience now working with a chef?
Yeah, Carl and I pretty much talk every day. So it's really fun for me to just be in the garden and see things ripening and shoot him a text or call him and say, hey, this is coming online soon. Start thinking about what you want to do with it. Or we may have an excess of something that's ready to be used, and Carl will come up with some amazing idea of recipe of how to use it. I think my favorite thing from last season was the use of the skins of the melons, which you fermented, and made a beautiful sauce, right, with it. Mm-hmm. And then coming soon will be all of the squash seeds that you created a miso with.
Yeah.
So it blows my mind. I love to cook. I'm really passionate about cooking, but there's so many things that Carl thinks of, like I would never have thought of using that part of the vegetable. So I've been learning a lot just working closely with Carl, and it's just this concept that he and I are both really passionate about is zero waste from the garden. That's our goal moving forward, is really trying to figure out how we use everything. And a recent example of that is the cover crop salad, which has been on the menu for past month. Yeah. And that was a result of Carl coming down to the garden, walking around, and this time of year we have our winter cover crop growing. And there's a forage kale in our mix, which is there for the health of the soil because of the way that we farm. But Carl walked by, picked a leaf, said, "This is delicious. Can I use it?" Sure, of course, you got it. So we've been harvesting that every week, and I think it's been really popular. People have been loving it. Yeah. So just that our relationship of trying to figure out how can we use it and what's it going to become week to week, it's been a lot of fun.
So how is working with the chef affecting what you plant?
Well, Carl has been part of our planning. So with Garrett, our director of agriculture, and myself and Carl, we all sat down. We talked about different value-added products that will come out of the garden, and also just things that have a lot of versatility. Mm-hmm. Like we talked about the melons, using every part of it. So a lot of that was how can we grow things where he could have 5 different dishes from this one item. So yeah, Carl's really an integral part of figuring out what are we planting and what it will ultimately become on the plate or as a product.
So Carl, then, as a chef, what is it like for you to have a tight working relationship like that with a farmer?
Oh man, it's if it's not every cook's dream, it should be, because it's incredible just to basically be asked hey, what do you want to work with? And we'll grow it. It's very humbling to be a part of that too, because it's a much bigger undertaking than I think most people realize. And I love the collaboration and talking with both Garrett and Jennifer about what we can do with these things. And Jennifer often receives some of my late night inspirational texts or emails.
The 2 a.m. emails are famous.
Yeah. Garrett gets those too, so thanks for putting up with those. But it's just so cool, and get pictures like, hey, can you use this right now? It's like, yeah, bring it. Let's go. And that relationship has driven sort of this seed to stem or zero waste, because I see the work that it takes for both Jennifer and Garrett to do all this stuff. And when you grow a squash and you use, if you're lucky, 60% of it, and then you throw 40% at the best in the compost, like there's got to be something I can do with this, and that's where the squash seed miso came from. We've smoked and dehydrated the skins and kind of used those as seasonings, or like in the dashi broth and stuff. So there's a lot of inspiration there. Both Garrett and Jennifer bring a ton of knowledge about products that I've never worked with, like the filter kraut, right? Is that how you say it?
Felderkraut, the German cabbage that is especially for sauerkraut, for making sauerkraut.
Yeah, mm-hmm. And we've been using that a lot, and we've been loving it. It's been one of my favorite products to work with, because it's just so... One, cabbage is very humble and underrated, but it's so good. And I love that stuff when, people order the cabbage over the pasta and say, wow, that was the right choice. It's like, yeah, that's a huge compliment. And you can't get there if you don't start with product that's premium product.
Yeah. We have lots of conversations about flavors. Everyone on the team here, I think, is really driven by flavor and quality. And because of the way that we farm and take care of the soil, and we create our own compost, the quality is there, in terms of taste, color, and then the nutritional value as well, from biodynamic vegetables.
So that leads us into biodynamics. What is it like for you to grow biodynamically, and why do you think that's important? And then Carl, what is it like to work with biodynamic produce? Maybe Jennifer, you start.
Yeah. For me, it's really being in touch with the natural rhythms of the seasons, of everything that sustains life and grows life. And so as a biodynamic farmer, we're paying attention to all those things. So a lot of it is observation, taking the time to notice it, work with it rather than work against it. So these, working with the flows of the seasons. And of course, we don't have any synthetic inputs into our system. We are organic at a base level, and then biodynamic on top of that, which means we integrate our biodynamic compost, and really trying to have a garden that is connected to all the energies of really the cosmos and everything that's life-sustaining. So it's really a wonderful feeling to be out in the garden and know that everything I'm touching, I could just grab it and eat it. I don't need to wash it. There's no chemicals on it. Seeing hummingbirds, all the pollinators, bees, butterflies. We've got a little family of rabbits. We have gopher snakes. I mean, just all the wildlife that is there in the garden with us is just, that's why I do it. I absolutely am so fulfilled by that. And then seeing what we can grow that ends up in Carl's hands on a plate, and then coming into the tasting room and seeing guests enjoy it with our wine. It's just this full circle moment to see people enjoying themselves and tasting all these flavors. That's why we do it. I think that's what drives us, is to give people that experience, to see why we go take all this extra time, effort. We don't do it the easy way. It's a lot of extra work to do it this way. But ultimately, I couldn't do it any other way and sleep at night. It's the integrity of farming this way is really something that matters to me.
Yeah, and so I'm lucky enough to be on the receiving end of all that stuff. And when I first met with Nate Wall, the winemaker, he had a quote that stuck with me. And he was telling me when the philosophy behind the wine is not setting out to making a certain wine, but to sort of help the grapes turn into what they want to be. Really, like, obviously you have to go in with some idea, and I think I've adopted that into my style of cooking, knowing that whatever's from the garden is going to be awesome. 100% faith in the product that's being produced. So then really, messing around with it, seeing what works, what doesn't, and then really just trying to highlight the flavors of the vegetables or the fruit or whatever, especially with these, dare I say, less exciting things like cabbage. And everybody was very impressed at how many ways we could cook a winter squash last year. So
oh yeah, that was, I think it was 20 ways of squash.
20 ways of squash, yeah. And that's part of the, embrace the challenge, right? Because there's going to be challenges, but that's all part of it, and that comes with it. And those challenges start in the garden with, rodents or pests or whatever, and then coming through, and weather is a good one. Hey, we're gonna do this salad this weekend, and oh wait, here comes a random frost. No, we're not. So what else are we gonna do? You embrace that, because that's the whole sort of mentality behind both the garden and Troon as an experience in itself.
Well, you mentioned the zero waste garden. I think we should just explore that a little bit more. And I can't think of a better strategy for a biodynamic farm is to use everything that you grow.
Yeah.
So how does that work in the garden and in the kitchen?
It's been, well, we finally got to it, and I was afraid to kind of start asking, like, can you save me all your garlic paper, because we can do something with that, like, this is weird, but let's try it. And it's really been awesome, because it was a challenge to start thinking that way. And it started last year with the squash. It's like, oh, what am I going to do with all of this squash? Like, I can only make so many squash soups and, squash ravioli. It's like, well, let's do something with the skin, So we roasted the skin and the seeds and kind of treated that more like a ragu, so like a meaty, more filling texture, which was great. And then from there, once we started thinking like that, it was just seeing all these possibilities of, like, oh, when we salt and drain our tomatoes, let's ferment that liquid into a shoyu or something like that.
Yeah.
And then, take the big leaves of the cabbage that we don't want to use for sauerkraut because they're a little tough, and either, dehydrating them and using them in vegetable stocks or broth, or using them as a cooking vessel for steaming things, like banana leaves are used. So it's really been a fun experience, and it just, keeps seeing possibilities of different ways to go and different ways we can use things.
Yeah, it's really been a mind shift for me to look at, Carl sort of opened my eyes, like, what, we can use the dried paper from our dried garlic braids? I would never have thought of that. So now it's sort of, looking at it with different eyes, like every single thing, can he do something with it? So it's like almost like a challenge, I think, that's exciting. Like I try to not to, of course things can go to compost, and then that's, part of our system. But if we can use every part of what we grow, that's the ideal for us. So really it's forcing me to look at it differently and to figure out how we can utilize every part of the plant.
Yeah, and there was this whole, like, nose to tail or tail to nose, whatever you want to call it, with, like, animals, and, respect the animal and everything that it does, use the bones to make stock and broth and stuff. And so what nobody's applied that to the vegetable world. And I think there's no better place to start that than with a place that has this high of quality of product like that. And that's the only way. Like, I would not suggest going to your local grocery store and saving your squash seeds for a miso. I don't think that would necessarily yield the best product, be a fun experiment, but really like starting with these super high quality things, being able to capture them at the right moment, which is also another super unique advantage of working so closely with the farm team is, hey, we've, picked the broccoli when it's 6 inches or whatever, so we can do like a stir fry or grill it as opposed to letting it turn into these big heads that we then have to break down and cook, more traditional sort of steaming or roasting ways. But yeah, it's been super fun.
Yeah. And I mean, talking about fresh harvest, when guests come here on Sundays for the Sunday lunches that you serve, I'm harvesting that morning. So everything is that's our goal, the peak of ripeness, as fresh as possible. And we're able to do that, which is incredibly rare to enjoy food in that way.
We had to tell a few people last week, it's like, sorry, you've got to wait on your salad, but Jen's harvesting it right now.
I ran out there and picked some more.
Yeah.
Sorry, we're picking.
Yeah. And
it's coming.
If that's not the best excuse, I don't know what is. So.
Yeah, and it helps to tell our story when people come in and experience that, because it's totally connected to the philosophy of this farm. And that's a great way to just draw people in with their senses, tasting the wine, drinking the wine, tasting the food, pairing them together. It's just this holistic experience. And while they're here, we can talk about, how is this better for the land? I have a Alice Waters quote that's how we eat can change the world. And so she's a hero of mine. I know we talk about Alice Waters a lot.
Huge inspiration.
Major inspiration for me. And so that's hopefully what we can impart to people is, yes, they're having this beautiful experience, but maybe start them thinking a little bit differently, because I truly believe that we can change the world if we farm this way and if it keeps growing globally.
Yeah, and that's part of the drive of these full utilization things, because it's just another way to make it more sustainable for everybody. We're getting more product out of the same amount of vegetables, and it's also, I think, enticing people to cook at home too, which I think is super important. If you can have these sort of higher end unique ingredients at your disposal, I feel more likely to cook at home, which more people need to do.
So let's look at some specific events and concepts that you're doing for the Troon Kitchen, and we're doing the first one I think to talk about are the Four Seasons lunches. Jennifer, could you just go over the general concept?
Yeah. So it's a new this year. So there will be our Seasons on the Farm lunches. So the first one is March 7th. And so we'll have one each season with a theme. And the idea is to have guests come and really experience what's happening that season on the farm. Tasting it and also learning a little bit about what it's like that season for us, either working in the gardens or in the vineyard, and just sharing that experience, because we are working with this seasonality and the changes and the flows. That's how we work. And so to be able to share that with people so they understand what it's like to how the wine gets in the bottle, how the food gets served, and just understanding that whole experience.
So Carl, how do you develop a menu for that type of event?
Yeah, it's really fun. It's as much looking at the products there and thinking about, like, this first one is coming up as rest. So to me, thinking about like how do you express this rest or rejuvenation or relaxation through food? And to me, it's this comfort food, right? Like, I think of mashed potatoes and things like that this is really grandma cooking for you. Sort of those homey, sit down, relax. Like, you may have to take a nap afterwards. That's fine. That's what we're here for. And just really being able to kind of put those, give that feeling and be able to use all the produce that is being produced here at the same time. So it'll be fun. I'm excited to see how it's received when we.
Yeah, well, I mean, our hope is it's a really intimate farm to table experience.
Yeah.
And this first one, we planned, really forward thinking, a lot of fermentation that you did, because we knew it was going to be a little lean in the winter.
Mm-hmm.
So there's been a lot of planning ahead to be able to preserve what our last things that we grew in the fall. So
yeah, and let those vegetables rest over the winter too. Which is another way that we can look at it. And it's fun to get the different ideas from Jennifer and Garrett with these more abstract concepts, like what does rest mean to them? And from the garden's perspective, what does the garden resting mean? And yeah, it's a very collaborative process, which has been really fun.
Yes, people don't often think there is produce available in the winter.
Right.
I mean, you are growing things now, Jennifer.
Oh, yeah.
Also, this combination of preserving from the last harvest combined with what you're growing now, I think, is really the fundamental personality of this lunch.
Yeah. We still have the hardy crops, Swiss chard, kale, green onion. So there will be fresh items too. So yeah, I think this menu is probably the most, maybe a little more challenging for Carl, but also I think one of the more interesting ones. I mean, summer's going to be easy. Summer's going to be hard for you to be like, I've got to get everything in there.
Yeah.
So this one's a little more challenging, but I think the flavors you're developing for this are just really going to be very interesting.
Yeah, and it's going to be fun because it's not, with making our preserves and ferments and stuff, like we'll be able to have habanadas on the menu and stuff that like habanadas and sunchokes, I don't know, like that's not, they're usually completely different times of the year, and so if you're doing that, you're usually not getting fresh or of quality. So it's a new tool I have to be able to use sort of these summer flavors throughout the year, because we've preserved them in unique ways that'll be fun to incorporate throughout the year, as opposed to just like, oh, it's tomato season now, everything's tomatoes all the time.
Yeah.
Be able to hold on to some of those we had tomatoes, we had some preserved tomatoes in the cover crop salad last weekend.
Yeah, I was really excited to see a tomato.
Yeah, tomatoes in February. Who would have thought?
Well, it's really mind-blowing too, because we grew the habanadas. I tasted them fresh, just picking them in the garden. And it was an interesting flavor, but then what Carl can transform it to with fermentation, all of that, it just is a whole nother level. So it's really fun for me to see what he starts with and then what it transformed to, and in this, really exciting flavors and things I never would have thought of combining too.
Yeah, these are small lunches for small groups,
sure.
But there's also an educational aspect
for sure.
You're doing.
Yeah.
So, what will you be talking about?
So I'll be setting the scene of what happens here in the winter, and that includes what's happening in the soil and in the plants. I mean, it's a dormant season for most of what we grow. So, and then just sort of this for myself personally, philosophically, what the season means, and connect it to some biodynamic principles that we can share with people, and hopefully, that'll start some really interesting conversations.
Yeah, and I think, like Jennifer said, there will be a lot of incorporated preserved product from the summer harvest, which is awesome, and it'll allow to talk about that and how things are preserved, and how people can start doing those things on their own, and different ways to use each type of preserve, so that it's a you're not just making one. Hey, I'm making this one salsa that's fermented, and this is the one salsa we're going to be eating for the next 12 months or whatever. It's being able to, sort of save each ingredient in its own separate way that they can then be mixed or not mixed if you want throughout the year, and really just building yourself, as far as I'm concerned, like a culinary arsenal behind you, so that you have all these things that are good, and then you can really focus on just using the fresh in-season product and know that you have other stuff to go with it to make it interesting that's going to take it to the next level.
So the Four Season lunches are look at the whole year, the whole season, but you're also here every Sunday doing our garden to guest lunches. So that is a weekly expression of the farm, a much different concept, and I would think more challenging too.
Yeah.
So you're doing 3 courses every Sunday.
Yep.
And let's just look at what you did last week. Could you kind of go over the menu and just how that came to be?
Yeah. So we had the cover crop salad. This week we did paprika vinaigrette on it with paprikas that we pickled this summer. The other starter option was our house focaccia that we made with a little bit of pesto in it from the garden, preserved tomatoes and ricotta, sort of bring in those summer flavors. We're like 6 months away from having the fresh version of that, basically, so it's kind of fun to be able to forecast the future with preserved items. We ran the cabbage last week, which a second week in a row. I don't often run things twice in a row, but I was so happy with the way that cabbage just turned out.
Delicious. It was like buttery.
Yeah,
and
it was so good.
So amazing.
Yeah, like if I could be vegetarian if everything tasted like that.
What was the sauce you had with the cabbage? Because that was amazing.
Oh, it was. Yeah, so it was all the juices left from the cabbage with that brown cheese, a little bit of the whey reduction that we keep, and Walla Walla onions, sweet caramelized Walla Wallas. That with the grain ragu with all the grains that we'd use to make our other ferments, our shoyus and the kombuchas we do for vinegars and things like that. Other main course option we had was the cavatelli pasta, pork belly from Firebird Farms, which is the awesome local pork. The Meishan pig, which is the Chinese. The best way I can describe it is the Chinese pork equivalent to Japanese Wagyu, as far as like. It's very prized and sought after. Grilled squash, and then we had a little persimmon in there for a little sweetness, which was pretty fun. Dessert, we did the dark chocolate with the blue cheese and red wine butterscotch, and then we did a really fun sort of not quite cheesecake, not quite creme brulee with some of the squash. Did a sauce of the smoked and dehydrated squash skins with some chilies and fermented elderberry with a little bit of the adobo that we made from the jalapenos this summer. So that one was a pretty fun one. Caught a lot of people off guard, but most of them, I think everybody liked it. So that one was really fun.
That's that menu. That's a real melting pot of world cuisine.
Oh yeah,
just 3 courses.
Yeah,
so
people are definitely liking it because we're having people come for the food specifically.
Well, yeah, that's great, and
so it's really having this every Sunday, and people are excited to see what you're going to create. It's been really fun to walk into the tasting room and see everyone. Being served these beautiful dishes, and I'm really excited that it's all come together.
Yeah, and that I can only take so much credit because I tell most people that it all starts down there in the garden. I do very little to it, which I think is the point, right? You just showcase.
Good ingredients don't need much.
Yeah, and so sometimes that's harder than not.
Having a light touch.
Because it's we're not ordering in truffles or anything like that, so we can't really as far as I'm concerned, like make mistakes, right? Because you don't have these extravagant flavors necessarily to sort of hide behind.
Right.
And so it's really just making sure to showcase whatever product you're trying to highlight the best way you can.
Yeah.
And then using the others to sort of accent or contrast, however you want to play with it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So another thing we're doing here brings us back to Marvin.
Mm-hmm.
Perhaps you could just tell the story of Marvin just a little more.
Sure.
And then we'll talk about what we're doing with it.
Yeah, so Marvin, when Mal and I decided, well, I'll tell the true story. When I decided to follow Mal to
myth.
Boston after college, we moved in, and she's the bread baker. She's the bread whisperer. She went through the pastry program at school, so she's the other half of the program. But we made Marvin. That was the first thing we did when we moved in. And who would have thought it would have been such a lineage for him.
Your first child.
Yeah, yeah. Uh-huh. And it's just a really simple, you mix flour and water and let it sit for a week and, take care of it and feed it. And if you have a sourdough starter at home, I highly suggest naming it, because otherwise, if it doesn't have a name, it doesn't have a personality, and then you don't take care of it. I've learned that lesson several times. So Marvin is pretty much incorporated into every menu. So when we moved from Boston to Portland, we had to take Marvin through TSA because he was not gonna fly in the bottom. And that was really interesting, trying to explain to people what this. Luckily, we were smart enough to freeze it so it was a solid and not a liquid. And try and explain what it is, and eventually the agents just eyes glazed over and like, fine, just go through. So yeah, that was a fun experience. I'm so glad we did it, because we considered just dumping him right there and be like, this isn't worth it. But then no, let's try a little bit harder. So came to Portland, and now he's down here in Southern Oregon. And the whole, I'm sure somebody's like, why would you go through that trouble and all that sort of stuff? And it really leads back to like this whole concept of terroir, and it tells a story. And that's why like San Francisco is so well known for their sourdough, and to the point where there's even a specific bacteria named after the city. I forget the Latin name, but it's San Francisco something, and that specific bacteria is what gives San Francisco sourdough their flavor. And then there's starters there that are over 100 years old. I know at the CIA that we went to, Mal was telling me there's a starter around that it's been around since like World War II. And much like I think about the kids taking home the class pet or whatever, during those breaks there was somebody responsible for feeding this starter. And I'm glad I didn't have to do it, because that's a lot of pressure, because you've got history. And yeah, it's just been super cool, and look, people love Marvin.
So now you've created this mini Marvins, I think you call it, small loaves of your sourdough, and you're matching that with 3 spreads.
Yes.
That you create. They're your creations, and then we're matching them with 3 wines.
Yep.
So what are the spreads, and what is your inspiration there?
So right now we're doing the vinegar curd, which is really fun. It's using the estate barrel-aged vinegar, much like a lemon curd. But we're just replacing that lemon juice with red wine vinegar. So I like to think of it as like almost like a vinaigrette, right? A spreadable vinaigrette. So you get a little bit of sweet, the acid from the wine, and the flavor of the wine shines incredibly well through the vinegar, which is crazy. I was not expecting it to be as flavorful as it was. And it's probably because I've never had vinegar made like this before. Right now we have the persimmon preserves, which are the persimmons that we harvested this fall. Super clean, easy. Not really a whole lot of other flavors, just really highlighting those persimmons because it's such a unique flavor that I feel like a lot of people don't get to experience very many ways. And then we're doing the brown koji butter. And so this is something that I do because typically when you have brown butter, it's separating it, right? Like you have the brown butter solids and then you don't have the spreadable product anymore. So we go through this process of browning the cream before we culture it into the butter, which is pretty fun because then you're able to keep that whole, spreadable butter texture, but you still get that nutty flavor from the brown milk solids in there.
So, where do you see the garden going in the next year now?
Oh man, crazy for sure.
We have a lot of variety planned for this season.
There's a lot of fun stuff coming out of the garden, and I really hope to get this like a clearer vision of these sort of avenues. Like this will be the first season that we fully approach it with this like zero waste mentality, and so I'm hoping we can get a little bit of experimenting in, and then know like, hey, we really liked the best way we came up to use with squash skin is this way, so we know how to process and what's going to lead us to showcase the best avenue of each of these individual products from the same plant. And
so then you're also going to be producing a range of preserved products.
Oh yeah,
that you're selling in jars and
yep.
and what is coming down the road for preserved products?
So our first releases will have the vinegar curd available, some of the persimmon jam, and then bunch of bunching onions or scallions were something that we're producing this fall, and so we made a grilled onion salsa verde. So it's ferments of like garlic and other alliums from the spring and summer. We have some walla wallas that we grilled to get some nice sweetness and char, and then a little bit of Durant olive oil in there, so that'll be available. We've got some miso, the squash seed miso's aging. Just started a batch of tomato shoyu. Experiments with some acorn products from the gorgeous trees out here.
Yeah, just foraged acorns.
Yeah.
We're not short of acorns.
No.
Yeah, and so those are the ones that are started and in the works, and then from there it's just a matter of, I'm sure we'll do, peach and tomatoes. That's one of my favorite combos when that season comes. So peach and tomato jam, and we've got a ton of basil, always have basil.
Yeah,
pestos and things like that. So yeah, I think we're going to have a lot of stuff to offer.
So I've always really thought your company name was great, Wilder Cooking, which I think, first of all, you like wild ingredients,
yep.
But also you are fearless in your cooking.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, in that, a lot of that confidence comes, from like the product, right? Especially here, it's like I have no question whether the product's good, right? So there's no, just keep it the way, just don't mess it up, right? That's the job now. It's not like, hey, make this taste good. It's just don't mess it up.
Yeah.
And, I will say it's been cool to see, because at first I was kind of hesitant with, putting adobo in desserts and stuff like that. But, I've kind of always had this goal of making people slightly uncomfortable when they're eating, just either trying something they're not familiar with, or maybe it's cooked in a way that they haven't had before, different flavor combinations. Beets are my favorite example. I've met so many people who are like, oh, I don't like beets, I don't eat beets, don't serve me beets. It's like, okay, I'm still going to. You don't have to like them, but my guess is you've never had a beet that like came out of the ground yesterday and has been treated as such. There's a lot of difference between the beets you get in the can at the grocery store versus a well taken care of and fresh beet. But yeah, the wilder cooking thing, it's my daughter's name too, and she got the name first, and then trying to figure out some type of way to, it was hard, right? Because you're not going to be like, hey, this is Dave's Hot Chicken or Bob's Burgers or Jose's Taco Truck. Like, there was not any of this. I didn't have a box. I didn't have a, dare I say, concept other than like, let's just find the good stuff and produce it. And so, Wilder fit in the way that it gives you no idea of what to expect, but to expect something uncommon.
Yeah, and yeah, definitely. I mean, we never know what you're going to come up with. I think that's the fun part. It's like you really don't have boundaries. I think your desserts always surprise me. Like, I would never think of that flavor combination. And so I think you don't put any boundaries on what you can create. And so I think that's what allows these like really surprising dishes that you come up with. So, and I mean, now I know 100% you're one of the most creative people that I know. Yeah. And it shows in your cooking.
Well, it must be exciting for you too. I mean, the vinegar that we have here, this 2-year-old barrel-aged Syrah vinegar that you made, and now to see it also transformed into a totally new product.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sure you never thought of.
I did not. When he told me, I'm like, wow, I love making lemon curd. It's one of my favorite things to make. I'm like, vinegar curd? Well, why not? That sounds incredible. And it is. It's delicious. So, yeah, it's really fun to see how even that product can be transformed. Yeah. And, there's a lot of different ways and different vinegars that Carl and I have been talking about, just expanding what we can do, because it's making vinegar, we're making it with the wine, of course, but also these different fruits and things we have growing in the garden. So there's a lot of different flavors that we can come up with down the line. I think we're going to have a lot of interesting vinegars available. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a good outlet to use these sort of, skins or, sort of these, dare I say, waste parts of fruits and vegetables that normally don't get consumed. Vinegar is a really awesome way to incorporate those. And it's a really awesome way to utilize what would be waste from the winery as well, which I think is really fun. Working with lees and things like that to make a super unique vinegar that's got, because it's all the lees or from the lees, it's got this rich sort of creamy mouthfeel to it. Not like any other type of vinegar I've come across before. And it's just really cool to have sort of these awesome products at your disposal that, at least to my knowledge, I haven't seen a recipe that incorporates, the lees into things.
Can you talk about your Syrah jam, please? Because that's been one of my favorites.
Oh, yeah.
How you made it and how it came to be.
Yeah, Micah. It's like, do you want the pumice? The squished grape skins and seeds and stems, and do you want to do something with it? I was like, I'll try it, whatever. And yeah, I just treated it like you would make a grape jam. sugar pectin, but because it's been fermented and, because it is the quality of product that it is, it just came through and shines so nice. And the same thing, I took half of that for jam because I had a feeling that would work, and then I took the other half and did like a quick miso version in the hopes that we'll be able to use it to like cure either meats or cheeses or some things like that, and that's been pretty successful too. I've been really impressed with how flavorful sort of this pumice is left after pressing and everything.
So what's coming up for you as a cook something you're inspired to work on, new concepts?
Yeah.
Where do you want to go?
Well, I'll be honest, I've been really like into these cabbages lately because they're so flavorful, and being able to come up with a way to preserve them, much like we won't be able to serve like a cabbage dish in the summer just because it's not the season, but to be able to hold on to those flavors, because cabbage is a great sort of it's in my opinion, one of the few ways that you can add sort of this body or richness to vegetarian food that you would miss like when you have chicken stock or something like that. And so being able to capture these products, capture the cabbage, and not only just turn it into sauerkraut, because that's a very delicious but easy way to go, figuring out like, okay, maybe we smoke these and dehydrate them and then we can use them to make a vegetable broth in the summer, or as a powder on top of tomatoes to sort of add a little bit of depth and bitterness to counteract the sweet acidity that it has. So that's really exciting. Habaneros were one of my new favorite flavors. Habaneros are kind of my heat limit, and so I don't think I've ever actually tasted the flavor of a habanero until I had a habanada, because I was just too overwhelmed. The sea buckthorns, those are awesome. I was very, very excited about those last year, and happy to hear they'll be back, and hopefully a little bit more this year, because we went through them pretty quick. But all those sort of, the gummy berries, things like that, there's so many like unique flavors that I had never gotten to work with until last summer. And now knowing what they're like, I'm excited to see what we can do with them. And
gummy berries are a real thing, right?
They're real. Not gummy berries, gummy berries.
Important to understand.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, those are real.
Yeah.
And they were delicious.
Yeah, I can see how your mind is working constantly in terms of, can we ferment it? Can we dehydrate it? So it's a lot of like a technique, I think, that we're embracing. Mm-hmm. Because then we can stretch these throughout the season in terms of being able to have, like you said, your arsenal of flavors. So I think a lot of our conversations recently have been about those approaches. Do we dry it? Do we ferment it? What do we, how do we do this? So that just opens up a world of possibilities.
Yeah, and I've been trying to figure out a way to explain this sort of philosophy with like the arsenal or whatever I want to call it. But I think of it, a lot of it, each of these products is like a different color in the color palette we can use. And so the more colors we have, the more you can do, right? And so I think that's the best way for me to explain it, is like, we're building our color supply that we can paint with.
Well, I think that's a great place to stop now that we're all hungry and it's lunchtime and everything. Carl, it's really inspirational to watch your cooking, and a great pleasure to be able to eat it.
Oh, absolutely.
So thank you for spending time with us, Jennifer and Carl.
Yeah, thank you.
Anytime.
Thank you for listening to Troon Talk. For more information, please visit us at troonvineyard.com. Thank you.